Hi, this is Frank J. Avella with Awards Daily. In her seventh collaboration with Pedro Almodovar, Penelope Cruz once again triumphs in the beguiling thriller Parallel Mothers. She's won the Best Actress Award from the Los Angeles Film Critics, the National Society of Film Critics, and the Venice International Film Festival. Welcome, Penelope, and congratulations on a truly remarkable performance.
Thank you so much. Great to meet you. Thank you.
Likewise. Penelope, I know you've been speaking a lot about your work with Pedro. It's really an amazing cinematic collaboration. What has this journey been like for you since Live Flesh, your first film with him?
It has been an incredible dream come true. You know, he's the reason why I decided to try to look for an agent, to go to a theater school, so that maybe one day I could go to a casting for him. And in a way, I always felt like I already knew him. I connected so much with his work and with his message, and something about his personality seemed very, very familiar. And then when we met, when he called me after he saw my first two movies, we met, and it was like finding a brother that you haven't seen in a long time. And it was not like a new person in my life. And I think he would tell you a similar thing. So now it's 7 movies together. I hope many more. And they all have been very intense adventures that have been amazing lessons for me in so many ways. Probably this one has been the most intense of all of them, but really beautiful experience.
Do you think this closeness enhances your working relationship?
I think it does, because we don't get too relaxed with each other. I mean, we have the trust and how well we know each other, but we don't, when we are on the set, that doesn't interfere with the way we look at the work, the responsibility that we feel. We even get a little distant with each other on the set, and we never talked about it. We never planned it to be that way, but I think we were afraid, like, okay, what if knowing each other so well, or all these years of relationship, would hurt in a way the process of trying to create something together. But I think I only asked him the first time a few months ago, and I said to him, do you realize that we are very different on the set? We don't joke, we're very, very serious with each other. He said, it's true, but actually it's working, even if we didn't plan it, but it's a way to try to protect the relationship and the work process.
It's pretty amazing you can do that. There are these levels you reach in Parallel Mothers involving the maternal moments, of course, but also as a daughter murdered by ancestors of Franco. How did you get to where you needed to go?
It was a process of day by day, actually more like minute by minute, because when I looked at the whole script, especially at the beginning, when I read it and when we were rehearsing like for more than 4 months, if I would think about everything that was coming, I would get very overwhelmed. And Pedro was there to make us feel more relaxed, to give us that time to try so many things during that rehearsal process, which was actually very much about drying our own tears, because the material was so emotional for us, for Milena and for myself, I think for everyone. But she and I had to go through all of this together, and we would start rehearsing a scene and we would start crying, and he would say to us, it's fine, you have to go through this, but just know that we are not going to have your own tears involved in this, only the ones of the characters when they are supposed to be there. And the way that, for example, my character expresses herself is very different from my way of expressing my emotions. It's much harder for me in my life to hide my emotions, and I can cry very easily, and it's actually like medicine for me. If I couldn't cry, I think I would be in a lot of trouble. It can be out of happiness, out of sadness, out of rage, but it is very therapeutical for me. And Janice doesn't have that. So Pedro was very wise to recognize that in us, and let us go through, like many, many rehearsals where we would just start reading the scene and just start sobbing, and we needed to go through that, because my character cannot have that explosion until the scenes of the confession. And I said to Pedro, I completely agree. I think it was an amazing note and amazing direction process. But I told him I really need to know that Janice is going to have that explosion, because I really felt that she needed that. And I also, I needed it. And I felt the audience needed to go through that with her, through that emotional release. And that's what happens after the confession.
Let's talk about that scene, because it was so cathartic. First of all, you know, I mean, it's cathartic for the viewer, but what did you feel the catharsis in that scene as well?
Completely. A part of me felt that if I didn't have those scenes where I had the freedom to explode, and she's almost like she's throwing up in the bathroom, almost passing out from the anguish and the pain. And in those scenes, I was allowed to really express all of that. In all the scenes up to that, the character is just eating up all her feelings and swallowing like so much pain and containing everything. And that was actually harder for me than when we had to shoot the moments of the explosion and the confession. I mean, we had spent so many months building up to that I was ready for that. The hardest thing was to contain all those emotions, all that month and a half that we shot before that. It was, and Pedro was so helpful every day in that way. And sometimes that release for me would happen in a hallway, or in the I would go out to the street and have that moment of release, and then come back and find that contention again. But I felt like if I didn't have those 2 weeks where we shot what happens after the confession and during the confession, I felt like I would go crazy. Like it was too much. I needed that, and it was written that way, and Janice needed that. And as you said, the audience needs to go through that too.
It's interesting because I had wondered, and this is maybe part of the backstory, if Janice had ever had doubts before Arturo presented them. What are your thoughts about that?
I think Janice is very smart and very sensitive, and I think a mother knows. I think she knew, and this is so painful for her that she has to look other way, because she cannot confront that possible reality. She can't do it. But other people start bringing it up, like her best friend, Rosy de Palma, or Arturo's comments, or then when she finds out that the other baby died, Anna's baby is dead, which is actually her baby. And then everything starts making sense, all these pieces of information and reactions from people that she trusts. And she decides to do the test, and she has to confront it. And one of the most scary scenes for me to shoot was looking at the computer and reading the results from the genetic test.
One of the things I so love about your acting is in moments like that, really.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. That was terrifying, because it's just a close-up of total freedom. He just gave me the email and he said, with no rehearsals for this, you're just gonna react to this and read it in the moment when we're shooting. And we just did like 5 different takes, trying different things. And yeah, those moments where there is not even a dialogue or somebody else with you, and it was pretty scary. But you know, I always have him there 100% with his total dedication to every department, and he doesn't miss anything. He can see everything we do or we don't do, and that is very encouraging to try to take a risk, which includes like doing some takes that could be ridiculous, that could be just gonna be thrown away, or could be like, if you saw them later, would be like, that was terrible. But to have somebody that gives you the freedom to try everything.
I always also appreciate how Pedro approaches sexuality of his characters. I'm also a writer, and I feel we're sexual beings, and that means anything can happen, really. So it's refreshing to see that in this film, that there aren't labels.
Yeah, I mean, and some characters can be more defined just because they are in their life, and some characters, like Janice, she didn't need to be, because she doesn't need that for herself. So Pedro and I never had that conversation. Not even we discussed if she had other female partners before. we didn't even talk about that because we didn't need to know. I made up in my head the story of her past, the story with Arturo, the story if there was another woman before or not. But what happened with Milena, with Anna's character, is it's not just sexual what happens between them. It's almost like we were talking with Pedro and Antonio Banderas yesterday about the movie, and he said something that I really loved. He said, in that moment when she kisses me and I react to that, it's beyond sexual, because it's like they become one mother, and it's in a way and strategy, not from Anna's character, which I think maybe Anna's character has like real feelings for Janice's character, but for Janice is survival mode, the lioness that is like finding ways to create a chosen family that can work, and this presents in front of her, and it's like, yeah, let's, in that moment they become one mother for that baby, which is what, well, we're not gonna talk about the end of the movie, but I think it's impossible to talk about this movie without giving away some things.
And
I have tried. It's not.
Yeah, and it's one of the.
You want to know that the babies are exchanged at the hospital. If I read that about a movie, I'm gonna go see the movie.
Yeah,
and that happened before.
And it's one of the extraordinary things that Pedro does is make magic like that. Speaking of bold, we were talking about bold earlier, and I was watching Vicky Cristina again just the other night, and I was so taken with your performance. It's so fearless. It's like you're using your entire being. Did you have a lot of free reign with Maria Elena? Were you able to really explore her?
I actually prepared that with my acting teacher, Juan Carlos Coraza, and Javier did too. So we were able to prepare it together. And yeah, it was the first time that I approached like playing somebody that in my belief had a mental illness and maybe bipolar. Like all those things were not written like defined that way, but that's how I approached her. So I had to approach that with a lot of empathy, compassion, and understanding like she is somebody that is defending one reality and cannot see a different possibility of a different reality, no, from somebody else. So I had to approach it that way. I could not approach it as making jokes or being funny. Even if later the scenes were funny, but I could not approach it that way. The same with all the humor in Pedro's movies. All the scenes that I have done with him that had humor, most of the times is subjects that are very tough and serious for the characters, and the audience doesn't know if they should be laughing or crying. And I think he's a master of comedy, Pedro, and I would love to do more comedy with him, because for like a segment of pure comedy was, for example, what we did in Broken Embraces, and it was like 15 minutes of the movie. But I feel like I haven't done yet my full comedy with him, like Women on the Verge or a movie like that.
It would be great to see it. Well, my final question is sort of wrapped twofold. When I think of you and Pedro now, I think of great actor filmmakers like Bergman and Lev Ullman.
Thank you.
Will we be getting more from you two? And my second question to that is, you just work with Emanuele Crealese, who's a filmmaker I love. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So your question about working more with Pedro, I would love to. I hope we can do many more things together, but I never would put pressure on him or ask him, oh, what are you gonna do? Is there a part for me? Never. I never did that with him. I don't do that with anybody. I don't believe in that, even if it's one of your best friends. We have a lot of respect for each other. I know if I'm right for the part, he will count on me, and I don't know, it's been 7, I would do 100 if it was up to me, but I know when it's right, it will count. And then, sorry, what was the other question about Emanuele Crialese?
Yeah.
I'm very happy you bring him up because I think he's such a special director and such a special human being. And I love this movie. We did it during the summer. It was supposed to be last summer, but because of COVID, we could not do it. And now it's done. And I love the character that he offered me. And my character actually sometimes plays Rafaela Carrà. So I'm not playing Rafaela Carrà in the movie, but sometimes my character and my daughter's character, they have a very special relationship, and sometimes they imagine that they are different people. And in one of the moments, she's Adriano Celentano and I am Rafaela Carrà. In another moment, I'm Patti Bravo. There are a lot of surprises like that, but the material is so deep and beautiful and brave. And I cannot wait to see the result of that, because as you know, he's very, I mean, from Respiro, you know, he's done really amazing.
Yes, and Golden Door.
Things. Yeah.
Oh.
So I hope you like this one.
I really look forward to it, and I thank you so much for spending time with us. Again, it's one of the best performances of the year. I can't praise it enough. Thank you again for taking the time out.
Thank you so much. You're so nice. Thank you, and nice to meet you.
Likewise. Ciao.
Bye.